What if you knew the power plays of the wealthy? I'll tell you what, I would listen up, and I have been listening up to our friend Marc Henn, Power Plays of the Wealthy. Congrats on the new book.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh man. So listen, the book has already received, listen, I got to tell this. I've never seen as much Facebook engagement from a post.
Hmm.
I mean, you have such a, you could tell like you've built the relational
Hmm.
credibility. Were you surprised of all
Thanks.
these people jumping out?
I was kind of, yeah. I didn't know what kind of response I was going to get. I was encouraged to write the book. I didn't know what kind of response it would receive, but it was information I just wanted to get out there. So I was surprised. Yeah, very grateful as well, and have had a lot of great comments, messages, notes, things like that. People I haven't heard from for 30 years are
Oh
writing
my
things, and I'm
gosh.
writing back to them as well. From high school, things like that. It's been great.
So what was the premise for the book? I mean, a book's a big undertaking,
Yeah.
and you put a great amount of time in it, but has this thing been, kind of in your head for a while now?
It has been. Yeah, I've had a few ideas kind of rolling around in there for some years, and again
Mm.
was convinced that I should write the book. And part of it, I think, came from the fact that as I as I'm meeting with individuals and discussing these different strategies and how they layer them together, their their shock, even their excitement, their holy cow, I didn't know you could do that kind of thing. You need to get this message out.
Mm.
That kind of prompted me to do it. And you have to remember, I have a degree in economics. I'm a certified financial planner professional. So I have all I got the appropriate letters behind my name, but a lot of this that, we talk about, you know, isn't discussed when you're getting that certification, when you're getting that license and in economics and so forth. It isn't. So as I learned more, we can talk a little more about that, but as I learned more and shared that with others, seeing their excitement and so forth, I thought, you know what, I'll take the time. I'll share this with people and see what the response is.
I think the world's hungry for this message, Mark, because I mean, we see it in the response, and we do kind of think that it's only for the wealthy. I mean,
Right.
you see this narrative on social media. I see it all the time. I just saw this the other day. Somebody I'm associated with on Facebook said on tax day, "Oh, the billionaires can write their jets
Yeah.
off, but we can't write our cars off, when we drive to work." And I wanted to comment, I didn't, because it's not worth it. But there's a whole framework that the tax code is written not for you to waste money. It's actually
Right.
meant for you to save money.
Right.
And there's a certain type of thinking that the wealthy do get richer, not because it's just because they are applying principles that are available for everyone. And I feel like
Correct.
that's what the message of your book is.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. You're right. I mean, the tax code, let's say the tax code is this thick, right? And, you know, this much of it is how you pay the taxes. Most of it is how you avoid paying taxes. But if you're not willing to take the time to understand that, that's fine. The IRS is happy to take this small portion and take all they can in your taxes. But they write the code in a way, you have to remember, a country, right, has to have certain things for its people. In our
Mm,
country, in our society, how that comes about is the government incentivizes the private sector to provide things that they need, that people need: jobs, we need housing, we need energy. So the government provides that, incentivizes the private sector to provide that for everybody. And that's where the I could say the wealthy, or just anybody that understands that, recognizes that there's these tax incentives there to be able to do that as well. So not only do we look at, and I use the term producers versus consumers in the
mm,
book, and having everybody understand that we're all, if you pay taxes, we're all a part of this system in terms of producers versus consumers.
mm.
And if you choose not to participate, that's okay. but your tax dollars that you're providing are now going to someone else who's wanting to produce these things. I'll say for most people to better society, right? I want to see good housing for people. We want to see energy for people. We want people having jobs, things like that. As a producer, if you're producing those things, you get to use taxes that other people have paid in to provide all those things and grow your wealth and grow your cash flow and minimize your taxes. So when you see these, very wealthy people saying like my average tax rate was 4%, we think to ourselves, they have to be cheating the system somehow. Well, later in the book, I put together one example of what I call an ultimate superpower play of how they layer these things together to get a tax rate from 40% down to I think it was 4.8%, something like that, just using the tax code and some assumptions that are in there as well. So it is for everybody. And so a lot of people, I think, well, they have this special tax thing. It's not for me. No, it's written for everybody. The only difference is the wealthy at this point in time might be in a different income tax bracket, but everything else is the same in terms of the strategies to use, how to build that wealth, and that will push you into, those higher income tax brackets, which we want to avoid anyway. But Kary, you and I both know there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that used to have a job that now started a business and have grown that. So a lot of the wealth in this country has not necessarily been just handed to people. It's come from individuals taking the time, taking the energy, getting the education, and building something then and using the tax code to their benefit.
I think, you're nailing it. From a young age, I started to, early on, I was a pastor, so I really didn't have a lot of money. So I feel like there's people watching this right now who are like, yeah, whatever, Mark. That's if you have a lot of money. But I'll tell you what, there's been a lot of data that show the law of compounding and how you don't need a ton, but you just need to have time on your side, and you need to. So, in your book, you have these power plays. You've mentioned a few of them, but I feel like even if somebody applied a couple of these, this could be some significant savings. And it's not, I read once that it's not patriotic to pay extra tax.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I completely agree. I think it's every American's job to pay the least amount of tax as possible legally. I mean, and the tax code is set up to be able to do that.
Wow.
It just is.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the book's now out. It's gotten some excellent reviews. It's gotten in USA Today. It's a bestseller. I just was on the page just a second ago. You're obviously getting this Amazon orange flag that basically says, look, this is the hot new release. It's #1. Huge congrats to you. So the point is, like, why do you think our world is ready for this message?
Going back 30 years, I picked up, again, the financial planning world in this country does a great job of educating their CFPs and things like that I think to be able to be prepared to help people. But it doesn't do a great job talking about all of these other areas. And so I remember picking up probably a non-traditional financial book in the late 90s and reading it. And it kind of opened my mind to this. So for the past 30 years, I've been reading and learning and gleaning this information and structuring and putting these things together. And so, what I saw was there were some great books out there that talk about why you should invest in real estate or why you should start a business. But I didn't find anything that looked at how do you layer all of these things together to build a structure that ties all these things together, and where do you start? And I even say this in the book. I could write a whole chapter. I mean, I could write a whole book on each chapter that's in there, and it still wouldn't be enough to cover every area. So, what I wanted to do was lay out these different areas, introduce these areas, introduce how they can be layered together to then push people to say, like, I want to learn more. I want to get more. I want to understand how I can put these together. And it may not look like the ultimate power play in your book right now, Mark, but in 10 years or 15 years, I want to get there as well. And that's for somebody that's 20. It's for somebody that's 40. It could be somebody that's 55. I can't remember when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken, but I think Colonel Sanders was like 65 or something. I mean,
You're
it's
right.
just
You're right. He was in his
never
60s.
too late to start
Exactly.
this process. It just isn't. Yeah.
Little ones, little power plays.
Yeah.
For example, I've read that someone can hire their kids legally.
Yeah.
That's one that very few people are probably doing. I've heard that, a car over 6,000 pounds is
Mhm.
section 179. Like, there's these things that people are like, what? Like,
Yeah.
huh? But you're saying that you start putting these power plays into action,
Right.
and then you have more to invest.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, what I've also discovered in this industry, right? So I'm, CEO and founder of Harvest Financial Advisors. We're an SEC registered investment advisor firm. We have clients probably in 30 plus states, things like that. And this is a common theme that I've seen in my entire industry, in the entire history of me doing this work, is that, we look at CPAs and they do a great job of
Mm,
helping you put your taxes together, file your taxes, things like that. But the structure really isn't there for them to provide that multi-year planning and structure about how to do these things. So a lot of it, and then there's some great CPAs out there, so don't get me wrong on this, but my experience has been they're not going to be the ones that say, "Oh, you need to think about this. If you're going to buy a new vehicle, if you get that over 6,000 pound vehicle, you can do this." Or think about, if you're going to do this, we want to time this properly and so forth. I don't see a lot of that going on. I'm sure there is somewhere, but
mm,
usually it falls to the advisors, to us, to lay out those multi-year strategies and bring the CPA in to then file the taxes, or to bring them on the team to get them involved in what we're thinking about. And that's a mistake I've seen, where a lot of people think, I'm just going to trust my CPA to do this. They don't get a lot of that. You really have to take charge yourself
that's true.
to understand this, or have people that are helping you that understand this, to then have your team that you should be having as you build that team out. Tax people, an attorney, things like that. These are steps all along the way that you build, but someone there to kind of coordinate that and to understand that. And so that's where a lot of times I think people miss out, is that I have a CPA, they should be advising me on all this, but they don't, right? They typically charge an hourly fee. They're going to charge that hourly fee to do your taxes. And typically people don't engage them to pay them more hourly fees to understand more. And that's where it kind of breaks down.
I love what you're saying. It's the journey I've taken. Some of my siblings have taken. I think a lot of people can relate. We didn't grow up in a wealthy
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
And so you kind of think, well, that's just the way it is. There's the haves and the haves nots. There's the wealthy and but the reality is like you can change the future.
Right.
And for people who think, well, this sounds really anti-spiritual. I have a faith that Jesus talks more about money than the afterlife.
Definitely.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't think, we hear all these little lame excuses all the time, like,
Right.
well, but Mark, you've seen people literally shift their financial future. And what
Yeah.
type define that type of person? Are they teachable? Are they coachable? Like what makes a person be receptive to this message?
That's a great question. It's somebody that has to have that hunger and yearning for something different.
Mm,
I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. I want everybody to, whatever work they decide to do, right? I want them to enjoy that and love it as well. And we want to come alongside to help them build and grow that as well, right? But even if it doesn't matter whether what we're helping them or not, those people that see this, that get this, that want something different, that want to build something, those are the people that will take a hold of this probably and run with it. Now, there's a section in the book. A lot of these books, when we talk about I address the 5 super asset classes. And a lot of these books that that are on the shelves, paper assets is one of them, right? Investing in the stock market, stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, things like that. A lot of these books kind of, I'll say poo-poo that idea. They don't like the stock market, right? They think other areas like real estate and businesses are better and so forth. But there's a lot of people out there that are more entrepreneur than entrepreneur, right? We use that term to reference people that love to innovate and do things, that just want to do it within a company, right? They just want a job and that's where they feel safe. How do I maximize what I'm doing within paper assets? Well, there's a whole section about that as well in the book for those that just want to do that as well. So my point is there's something in there for everyone.
I like that.
Even if it's somebody that says, you know what, I don't want to do all these other things. I appreciate you mentioning them to me, that I could start a business. I could do this as well. I don't want to do that. Okay, great. How can we maximize though what you're doing already? And we talk about, the super Roth IRAs and how to structure cash flow in retirement, maybe to save $4,000 or $5,000 in taxes a year. Those are things that are in the book as well that will apply to everyone, even if you don't want to go on that journey in these other areas. But for those that do want to go on that journey, the teachable ones, the ones that I see are the ones that get excited when they understand this. I just got a text from somebody a day or two ago. They're like, I remember you talking to me about this, 10 or 15 years ago. And I just read your book. I love it. Can we re-engage and talk about it again?
Oh, that's cool.
It's going to reignite things in there as well. And these things, I've heard somebody say once, the next time Congress leaves tax laws unchanged for 10 years will be the first time.
Wow.
And as long as we have the IRS around, and as long as we're taxing people through an income tax system, I don't care how they change the tax code, we are going to have these incentives for people that are willing to produce. And I will say, for those of you that get excited and want to go down this journey, the ones that have the most success are the ones that have a heart to want to help people as well. So you mentioned earlier, how can this be more, how does this address with your Christian faith or something like that? Well, there are going to be some people that focus on the money aspect, but the money is kind of like the secondary thing that comes along. That, I know that. The idea of being able to step out and help people to create, to create jobs for people if you have a business, to provide clean and healthy places for people to live, to be able to give energy. How do we provide more energy, keep the costs down for people? We all know inflation has been kind of crazy with a lot of these areas, but how can we do that to help keep the cost of energy down? All those things go into what a producer can do. And the byproduct of that is they build their own wealth. And then their own wealth, they have more left over, going back to what you said earlier, that they can reinvest. But that reinvestment then goes back to help other people again as well. That's where I've seen the most success out of this.
Oh, so good. And I like what you're saying, that it's not a one size fits all. Personally, I've read books, that talk real estate. And I get it. Like, my sister's a real estate master, but it's like, I'm running businesses. I don't want I don't want a phone call about a faucet or, something, you know what I'm saying? So I get it. I love your book because it's almost like, here's a treasure trove of secrets. Use what fits and discard what doesn't.
And one of the things I'll throw out there is that, I would have loved when we did this launch to have everything set up in place, right? But not everything is quite there.
Yeah, you got some good websites coming.
The website's the Marc. I have a website, marchenn.com, that should be up here in just a few days. But one of the things I'm going through right now is we are probably in the next week and a half, we will finish up season 1 of what I call the Transformational Wealth podcast.
So good.
And it's going to be 6 episodes. And those 6 episodes actually are going to focus on this book, Power Plays of the Wealthy. And I'm going to be interviewing some people. And one of the persons I'm excited to interview is a woman that's actually here in Cincinnati that I know. She got a degree from Purdue. I'm a Boilermaker as well, so we had a lot to work on. But instead of taking her degree and going into the business world, she started investing in real estate, and she started one house at a time. And she mentioned, and I don't want to steal her. I don't want to steal her story, right? But she built up this real estate. You may call it an empire, but a nice portfolio of real estate over time.
Wow.
And I'll leave the rest later. But the point is, we're going to have some interviews on these podcasts that focus on these different super asset classes, and people just like everybody that's watching that, I haven't started yet, but where can I start? Here's a great example of somebody that got started in real estate with one house, and then how they built on that. I'm going to be interviewing, Carter Freilich.
Oh,
I'm
great.
interviewing Carter on businesses, how he started a business, right? He went from a job to a business. He had a business that he started that didn't work out. So what did he learn from that when he started his second business, right? So failure being something that's a launching point, not something that says like, well, I tried it, I must stop. I got to stop now. Right. So I'm excited about those things, and those will kind of come along with this book as well. And I wanted those to be ready today. They're not, but they'll be coming out here in a few short weeks, and I'm excited for those. And we'll put those up on all of our social media when they're out as well.
And I've already looked. I mean, your website, I was just on this page. Look at the resources. I mean, this is fantastic, I mean, there's Social Security, there's retirement, there's financial tips, there's snowbirds strategy. I mean, you're putting out a treasure trove. And I gotta give a little shout out to Marc, because he's literally one of my favorite clients. I'll tell you why. We've published 1,300 authors the last 20 years. But the reason why you're one of my favorite is you're super coachable. So I feel like all of your platforms are growing. Your LinkedIn's growing. I mean, you're putting out amazing stuff, and engagements up. Your websites are being redone. Your podcast is launching. It's like you get the fact that you are putting out intellectual property that's changing people's lives.
Right.
And you're not sitting there saying like, well, this person just watched my YouTube but didn't become a customer, didn't become a client. No, you're just literally spreading all this seed of value. And I think you're starting to see it. Like one guy says, hey, we haven't chatted in 15 years.
Right.
I'm in. So talk about you in this phase of your career where because this takes a lot of, I've seen it happen. You almost need to look in the mirror and say, I'm going to be a thought leader because it's not about me, and I'm going to take up my impact to another level. Did you kind of have to go through some of those thoughts?
That's first of all, thank you for the kind words.
And
I just want to, as a side note, you all at Igniting Souls, I mean, just been phenomenal. I mean, if anybody ever thought about writing a book and wanted some assistance, I would go directly to you all again. I mean, it's been a great experience.
Good.
And kudos to you guys. You've done a great job putting that together.
Awesome.
And we met, some years ago through Strategic Coach, and I knew that was out there, but wasn't ready to do it yet. And I think, the question you're asking, the transformation I guess I'm seeing myself go through is, when I think about what I want to share with people, when I think about business, I recognize if I give out, it's going to come back. And I've seen that happen so many times, where we may have helped somebody, and I get a call from somebody from Nebraska, and I'm like, how'd you get my name?
Wow.
I was sitting on a plane ride with somebody who's telling me that you did this for them and helped them out, and I wanted to give you a call and check in with you and see if you could help me as well. Just giving that out will come back around again. And for me, it was probably having the time and to be able to do that in a broader format. We have several great, advisors here now at the firm. When I started the firm, it was just a couple people. Now we have 15 people. And so a lot of great advisors that can help people, where I can spend more time now. I'll say being the face of the firm, getting this, sharing these messages as well. And I wanted to go beyond just so we look at the LinkedIn posts that we've been, putting up. I wanted to go beyond just reiterating, this is why you should start a business. This is why you should do a business. Think about the tax savings from a business standpoint. those are going to be there. Those are going to be coming out and encouraging people. But I
Sure.
also wanted to go beyond that and reference the fact that think about, I'm going to assume you've already started it now. And what are we going to do beyond that? Let's think ahead for this. How to be a great leader. Don't micromanage. Don't, be an encourager. So how do we address that as we're moving forward as well? So I want that, and this is why I call the podcast Transformational Wealth. I want that transformational
Mm,
wealth to be there because the money, the financial wealth, while that is a form of wealth, I kind of see that as being a lower form of wealth, and that will provide the ability for everyone to provide and be engaged in what I look at as
mm,
better or higher forms of wealth. So wisdom, relationships, how do we interact with others? How do we connect with others?
that's it.
How do I listen? I mean, think of this highly politically charged environment we're in. If I'm on an opposing side politically, how do I learn to listen and engage so we can respect others as well? Those are all forms of wealth that we want the financial wealth to impact as well. So I want to kind of encompass all of that as we move forward with the finance piece that I've learned for 35 years, but also hit these other areas of how we can transform wealth for people and see it as a higher, almost a higher calling, I guess, or
I
a
love it.
place to be. So that's what excites me about this, are the things that we can do now. And again, from a business standpoint, I know that will just turn and attract people in to what we do. And like I said, we're ready. We have the advisors here. We're excited to help people. But I just want this, you're at a point where you want to give back and give back more.
Yep.
And that's just kind of where I'm at. And I love this opportunity. The book has led to the opportunity to do this as well, and for more things in the future.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's called Power Plays of the Wealthy: How to Retire Early, Supercharge Your Cash Flow, and Minimize Taxes. Who doesn't want those 3 benefits? I
Yeah.
mean, come on now. And then the website where all the magic's happening really is this, harvestadvisors.com.
Hmm.
And you got lots of new things coming. We hear about the podcast, we hear about the new website, but I really like this Harvest Advisors. You're out of Cincinnati. Last question: what if someone's not in Cincinnati and they say, "Hey, you know, can you still work with us?" What's the answer today?
Definitely so. I mean, as I mentioned, we have clients in 30 plus states. So we have the ability to work with anybody in any state, also around the world as well. There's some countries in Europe that are difficult to work in because of their regulatory requirements. But, Hong Kong, it's international as well. But any state in the U.S. is good. And we have probably 32 states right now where we have clients. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, folks, get his book today. Literally, I mean, where can you get the Power Plays of the Wealthy? Tap into these, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, perhaps some of you even millions of dollars worth of savings over the lifetime of your career
Yeah.
for such a good bargain. So, Mark, thanks for giving your value to
So,
us today.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share it.
All right, folks, get your book today. We'll see you.